Good morning, grade 11s. This morning we're going to look at rational inequalities which form part of the grade 11 AP syllabus. Now, in our first example, we have in the numerator 2 minus x plus 3 over x minus 1 is smaller than or equal to 0, and we need to solve for x. So the first thing that is important to remember when we are dealing with inequalities is that we have a 0 on the right hand side, which we have in this case. So the next thing we need to do is we need to find the critical points. In other words, what would the value of x be if this was equal to 0? So in our first bracket, we can see that x would be 2 to make it 0. In our second bracket, it would be minus 3 plus 3 would be 0. And in the denominator, it's going to be 1 minus 1 is 0. So we're going to go and write our critical points in order from smallest to biggest. So our smallest one is going to be negative 3. Then we're going to get 1, and then we're going to have 2. I then take those values and I put them on the number line. So this would give me minus 3, 1, and 2. Now I ask myself, is it possible for x to be negative 3? If it's negative 3, we will have a 0 in the numerator, which is possible. If the value is 1, then we're going to have a 0 in the denominator, and this is not possible because division by 0 is undefined. So we put a little circle here to indicate that x may not be 1. Then we go and look at if x is 2, there's going to be a 0 in the numerator, which is fine. Now, what I go and do is I go and find values. First of all, I find a value that is greater than 2. So let's say, for example, 3. And I substitute it into the equation. So let's say what would happen if x is equal to 3. So if x is 3, I'm going to have 2 minus 3. I'm going to have 3 plus 3 over here I'm going to have 3 minus 1. So 2 minus 3, this is going to give me a negative 1. That's going to give me 6. And this is going to give me 2. So I'm not really interested in the answer. All I want to know, is it positive or is it negative? And I can clearly see my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to put a negative there. Then I'm going to look at what would happen between 1 and 2. Let's say if x is 1.5. So if x is 1.5, I'm going to have 2 minus 1.5 over, this is going to be 1.5 plus 3, and this is going to be 1.5 minus 1. So this is going to give me a positive 1/2. This is going to give me a positive 4.5, and this is going to give me a positive 1/2. So my answer here is a positive. All right. So that is very important. So if I put the answer here, it's going to be a positive. Now between minus 3 and 1, we can substitute 0. So what happens if x is 0? So then I'm going to have 2 minus 0. I'm going to have 0 plus 3 over, I'm going to have 0 minus 1. So this is going to give me a 2, a 3, and a negative 1. So my answer here is going to be negative. So over here, it's going to be negative. Now, if I substitute minus 4 in there, I will find that my answer is going to be positive. So now, my inequality says, where is this fraction smaller than or equal to 0? That means, where is the answer going to be negative? So it is negative between minus 3 and 1 and greater than 2. So this is my answer. Therefore, minus 3 is smaller than or equal to x, which is smaller than 1, or x is greater than or equal to 2. So this is then my answer. There's your answer. These are just calculations. Okay, let's look at a second example. I have 3 over x is greater and equal to x over 3. Now the first thing that I notice is that there is not a 0 on the right hand side. So I'm going to bring this x over 3 over to the left hand side. So I'm going to have 3 over x minus x over 3 is greater and equal to 0. Now I'm going to find my common denominator, which would be 3x. So 3x divided by x gives me 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. Minus 3x divided by 3 is x, and x times x is x squared, is greater and equal to 0. I factorize the numerator, and I'm going to get 3 minus x, 3 plus x, over 3x, which is greater and equal to 0. So now I need to find my critical points. And my critical points are what happens if I make the first bracket 0. I'm going to have x is 3. If I make the denominator 0, I need a 0. And if I make this bracket, I need a negative 3. So those are my critical points. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw my number line. There's my number line. And here is negative 3, there is 0, and here is 3. Okay, so again I'm going to go and I'm going to look and say, which one of these, if I substitute it in, will make the fraction undefined, and that is if x is 0, so that's an open dot. So I can have that x is negative 3 or that it is 3. So now I need a number greater than 3 to substitute in to see what's going to happen. So what happens if x is 4? So if x is 4, I'm going to have 3 minus 4 over 3 plus 4 over 3 times 4. And I can clearly see here this is going to be a negative, that's a positive, and that's a positive. So my answer is a negative. So this here is going to be a negative. Alright? What would happen if I have between 0 and 3, let's say x is 1. Okay, so if x is 1, I'm going to have 3 minus 1, 3 plus 1 over 3 times 1. And all of those, it's a positive, positive, positive. So my answer there would be a positive. So these are going to be positive values. Then what's going to happen if x is between minus 3 and 0? Let's say x is negative 2. Alright, so I'm going to have 3 minus minus 2. Alright, and I'm going to have 3 minus 2 over 3 times negative 2. Now this first bracket is a positive, that's a positive, that's a negative, so my answer is going to be a negative. So this is a negative, and if I substitute minus 4 or minus 5 in here, I'm going to get a positive. So therefore my answer is going to be, now I said my question was, where is this fraction greater than or equal to 0? So in other words, I'm looking for my positive values. And my positive values are where x is greater than or equal to 3. So x is going to be greater than or equal to negative 3, or it is here between 0 and 3. So x is greater than 0, or smaller and equal to 3. And that is my solution.